And welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Pache. Always great to be with you as we continue to roll on this afternoon. We want to get the latest updates coming from Minneapolis, given the weekend that was another hard one for so many in Minneapolis. And with the latest updates coming, that President Trump also speaking on the phone this morning to Governor Tim Walz. We got the latest updates right now on the ground from Fox News' Garrett Tenney joining us here with a full breakdown. Garrett.
Yeah, Mike, big developments with that conversation between President Donald Trump and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on the escalating tensions here in Minneapolis. Here's how the two men described that call. President Trump said it was a very good call, and we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength. The office of Tim Walz released a statement calling it a productive call and said he made the case that we need impartial investigations of the Minneapolis shootings involving federal agents and that we need to reduce the number of federal agents in Minnesota, which, according to Walz's office, the president agreed to look into. Today, President Trump also announced he is sending border czar Tom Homan to Minneapolis tonight to take over both the investigation into Saturday's shooting and the immigration enforcement operations here. So those developments seem to open the door to some kind of an off-ramp to the increasingly volatile situation here in Minneapolis, which we saw more of last night when a group of anti-ICE activists targeted a hotel where federal agents were staying. They broke the windows, vandalized the building, destroyed the lobby, and you can see for a while there was just a single Minneapolis police officer standing there in the entryway, not really doing much of anything to stop it. So federal agents had to take things into their own hands and geared up to clear the crowd out. Listen to this one agent standing in the doorway with what appears to be a bloodied hand.
Local PD. That's my question for the press.
Okay,
where is the local PD?
Now, eventually, Minneapolis police did show up, but the department says federal agents deployed chemical munitions without notice. No arrests were made. Only 2 people were detained and then released. These ratcheted up protests come after the Saturday shooting of Alex Preddy by Border Patrol officers, the second shooting of an American citizen by federal agents here in the past 3 weeks. Almost immediately, multiple federal officials described Preddy, an ICU nurse at the VA, as a domestic terrorist since he was armed with a 9mm handgun. But that description has started to change as more video has come out showing Preddy never brandished the weapon. Our Bill Malugin reports that more than a half dozen federal law enforcement sources say there is growing frustration with DHS and administration officials over the rhetoric and narratives they've put out in the media about that shooting, such as DHS Secretary Kristi Noem initially calling it a case of domestic terrorism, a claim that isn't supported by any of the videos that have since come out. Here's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche this morning on Fox and Friends.
I don't think anybody thinks that they were comparing what happened on Saturday to the legal definition of domestic terrorism. What we saw was a very violent altercation, and I am not going to prejudge the facts.
We've also learned that at least some of the Border Patrol agents involved in Saturday's shooting were wearing body cameras at the time. So that video is now part of this investigation. And what isn't clear at this point is what will happen to that video and if it will ultimately be made public. Mike?
Yeah, Garrett, you did a great job over the weekend covering the protest as it was happening. Tell us, what was it like to be in the midst of that chaos just moments after this incident played out?
Mike, it was really interesting because what initially happened is you had federal agents that came in to secure that crime scene. You also had local state police come in to secure that crime scene. And the idea was that Minneapolis police said they sent their officers in to secure this crime scene so that they could make sure they gathered evidence for their own investigation into this shooting. Now, when that happened, Governor Tim Walz made multiple statements saying that the federal agents need to get out of there and that the state had the resources it needed to control that scene and to control the situation here in Minneapolis. But what ultimately happened is when federal agents finished their work there and when they did clear out, is the local and state police who were there were completely overwhelmed by the hundreds of protesters that had gathered around that intersection and essentially ran those officers completely out of the area just by sheer numbers. So you have this narrative from state and local officials that have said, we can handle the situation that's here on the ground. But time and again, we have had opportunities to see if that could be the case. And so far, there has not been any evidence that they have the will or the numbers to be able to control these crowds here that have largely been able to do whatever they want.
Garrett Tenney reporting for us in Minneapolis. Thanks so much for the updates. Great reporting. Stay safe to you and your crew. We appreciate it as always. Thanks so much, Garrett.